to Cat and Jess Talk the Best, where we're going to be talking about IMDb's top 250 movies from April 12th, 2018. My name is Kat.
And I'm Jess.
And today we are talking about the third movie in our Halloween event, which is Beetlejuice, a comedy fantasy film from 1988. This film has a 7.5 on 237,012 votes. The spoiler-free synopsis. After Barbara and Adam Maitland die in a car accident, they find themselves stuck haunting their country residence, unable to leave the house. When the unbearable Deetzes and teen daughter Lydia buy the home, the Maitlands attempt to scare them away without success. Their efforts attract Beetlejuice, a rambunctious spirit whose help quickly becomes dangerous for the Maitlands and innocent Lydia.
Alright, so this is directed by Tim Burton. He's also directed movies like Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Batman,
Yep.
and Sweeney Todd. I had to throw the musical in. And this stars Alec Baldwin, Geena Davis, and Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice.
Yep. So, the ratings for this. On IMDb, 29.1% of users rated this at an 8. Metacritic, it has a 70. And Rotten Tomatoes, 84% on 56 critical reviews. Steve Rose. The story almost comes off the rails, but Beetlejuice's charm lies more in the execution. The movie is crammed with visual invention and snappy comedy. I feel like that's almost insulting.
That is almost insulting. It's like, well, it's okay. That's kind of what it's saying.
It's probably a positive review, but they just pulled that line from it. I didn't read it, so. Kevin Thomas. The film is a dazzling display of director Tim Burton's unique pop culture sensibility.
Now that I agree with.
So, 2 rotten. Gene Siskel. An overly ambitious special effects comedy obviously influenced by the success of Ghostbusters.
What?
I don't think so, but it's just me.
I'm just really confused. Ghostbusters came out 4 years before this.
Yeah.
Oy.
So, Felix Vasquez Jr., the character of Beetlejuice is hazy because the writers can never decide if he's a villain or an anti-hero. That's because Michael Keaton did whatever he wanted.
Exactly.
They didn't write anything for him. They just let him go. Like, he had very few things that were actually written. They just let him play it however they wanted to play it.
Which made it even better. But it's Michael Keaton. I mean, I already talked about him, like, in one of our special things, how much I love his work, so.
So the consensus, brilliantly bizarre and overflowing with ideas, Beetlejuice offers some of Michael Keaton's most deliciously manic work and creepy fun for the whole family.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the money. The budget for this was $15 million. In the U.S., it made $74,220,408. And we are recording on October 15th. It is in theaters, I think, starting the 17th, I saw. There's showings, at least in Colorado, there's showings starting the 17th. So that number will go up for how much money it's made because they do show it. I'm pretty sure every Halloween they show this movie because I've seen it in theaters in Denver as like a one-night special in October before. But the opening weekend, it made $8,030,897. The all-time domestic rank, number 1,079. And then its highest all-time rank, July 5th, 1988, at 99.
So a few months after it came out?
Yep. because it came out in March. So, this, for the awards, this did win 1 Oscar. It won 6 other awards and had 11 other nominations. So, the Oscar that it won was Best Makeup. And V. Neal, who is one of my favorite makeup artists, was like one of the head people on this. She's done a lot of work with Tim Burton. She works with him a ton. She also works with Johnny Depp a ton. But she's one of my favorite makeup artists, so I'm super happy that she got that Oscar.
It's like, she's great.
Yeah, she's one of the best. So the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films. Best Horror Film. Best Supporting Actress. Sylvia Sidney. Best Makeup. The BMI Film and TV Awards. Best Film Music. With Danny Elfman.
Danny freaking Elfman, man. Enough said.
And then National Society of Film Critics Awards. Best Actor. Michael Keaton. Young Artist Award. Best Family Animation or Fantasy Motion Pictures. And that's all the awards. So, initial thoughts.
I don't remember the first time I saw this. I've been watching this, I think, like, my entire life. And I love this movie. I mean, Michael freaking Keaton. That's all I gotta say. He's amazing. Amazing. And then there's Tim Burton on top of it. Oh, I love Tim Burton also. So I'm like, it's just like 2 brilliant minds just melded together and made this beautiful masterpiece that's in front of us. That's how I feel. I love this movie. I watch it. I don't even watch it just like in October. I watch it year round. Because that's how much I love it. So, that's all I gotta say.
I don't remember the first time I watched it either. Because I think I was like really, really little. That's because I started watching horror movies when I was really little. So this was nothing compared to horror movies.
Yeah.
But I really do enjoy this movie. It's super fun. It's also got some good horror elements to it. Even though it's not classified as horror, it's got some elements to it that are very, could be very scary for kids that aren't used to stuff like that. So I do like that part. The makeup in this is amazing. I think the only thing really watching it now, seeing as how our special effects have changed so much, is that just the CGI is very noticeable. But it's just because technology has gotten so much better. Because at the time when I watched it when I was little, you couldn't tell. But they don't use much CGI in this movie, so that's a good thing too. Like, they only use it for a couple of parts. Most of the rest of it is practical effects, which I love practical effects way better than CGI. So.
Yes. Exactly.
I like all of the practical effects in this. They're all done really well.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
That was your warning. If you haven't watched the film yet, then stop listening and come back after you've watched it. So I really like the way that we start this one off. After having talked about Hereditary and then going and watching this again, they're very reminiscent of each other. Because they both start out with, like, models at the very beginning. Like, this one starts out with, the model of the town. And then, of course, Hereditary starts out with the model of the house.
Did you do that on purpose?
I did not. I didn't even think about it. But me being so interested in models, it just, like, really hits home. I'm like, oh, I love that. That's awesome. I don't do models like that. Like, I do model ships and cars and stuff, but still.
I mean, I picked 2 movies that have Freddy in it, so...
You did. Did you do that on purpose?
I did not.
See? But yeah, so we got, like, was panning over the little model of the town. And then, and actually, I think it kind of starts on the real town and then transitions into the model. Because you can tell When I was younger, I couldn't tell, but that's probably because I wasn't paying attention as much. But you can tell when it switches into the model because the trees start looking fake and stuff. But then we see the house, and it's like on this hill, and then we see this big gigantic spider. And my young brain is like, oh my god, that's a huge spider climbing on this house. This movie's gonna be so scary. I do remember that as one of the first thoughts I ever had of this movie, is that spider is gigantic, and it's gonna kill all the people that live in that house.
Oh, I didn't think that.
Because I probably wasn't paying attention, noticing it was a model. I probably just glanced up, saw the house, and then saw the spider, and I was like, oh. So I thought it was like a real house, and then you see the hand, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's a model.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We see Alec Baldwin's character, Adam. He is working on this model. He takes the spider, and he takes it outside, and lets it free instead of killing it. And then his wife comes up. Her name is Barbara.
Yes.
And she gives him a gift. And I think it's a book. I don't remember.
I think it's something to do with the model. It's like a little model part.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a book. I got excited.
He gets her something too.
Yeah, he got her a gift as well. I think it's like their anniversary or something.
Yeah, it's like wallpaper he got her.
Yeah. But they're gonna go... Oh, wait, no, not yet.
The phone rings.
Yeah, they're like ignoring it, kind of. They're like, oh, we should get that. But they like pull each other down, and it's like 2 or 3 times they pull each other down. And
cute,
then,
happy couple. Aww.
Yeah. And then they have a knock on the door. And so they go answer the door, and it's their neighbor/friend, Jane, and she is talking to them about someone who wants to buy their house. And Barbara's like, we don't want to sell our house. Would you just leave us alone?
It's like, she's like, Jane says, well, this just really should be for like a family. And Barbara's like, really?
Insulted, yeah.
Rude.
So then they head into town because Adam has to get some stuff for his models from, I guess, the hardware store.
Yes, which they own.
Yep. And then they are on their way home after they've gotten their stuff. And there's a dog in the middle of the road. So they swerve to miss it. And they swerve through this barn bridge thing.
Yes.
And their car is like hanging on just one little board, and the dog is standing on the end of it. And then the dog jumps off, and the car falls in the river. And this is kind of like an inconspicuous type accident. Like, there's a possibility they could have gotten out of it. You don't know, because when they get home, they're just like all wet and stuff. And it seems like maybe they did get out. And then weird stuff starts happening, like,
she's drying her hands, like, in the fireplace, and her hand lights on fire.
yeah. And then they remember that the fire wasn't lit when they left, so that was kind of weird.
And they don't remember how they got back to the house.
Yeah. Also, Adam wants to, like, retrace their steps, so he goes outside, and it ends up being, like, this desert. It's not actually outside their house, because they can't leave, because they figure out they are dead.
Barbara shows, she's like, Adam, come here. And so she shows, she has this little horse, and she's moving it across the mirror. And there's no reflection at all from either of them. It's like, yeah, they're probably dead. And then they find the handbook.
Yep, the handbook for the recently diseased, as Adam says. But it's like, deceased.
It's deceased. Or recently died.
Yeah. But they've got lots of questions. They're, like, really curious about what's going on. Like, they don't understand. Which could make sense. They're dead. They don't understand, like, what happened or anything.
They're like, if you're dead, aren't you supposed to be dead? Why do we come back, you know?
Yeah.
He's trying to read through the book, and it's just like, he's like, this reads like, what was it, a stereo manual or something?
Yeah, stereo instructions. Then we kind of get a glimpse of Beetlejuice.
It's like, there's the candles lit, and you see, like, these business cards that read. It says Beetlejuice, but it's spelled differently.
Yeah. It's spelled like Beetlegeist is how a lot of people pronounce it, because they don't
Yes.
Because it's spelled kind of weird. But so he picks up the newspaper and he's like looking through. He's like, I gotta find a job. And then he sees the picture of Adam and Barbara that they have died. And he's like, oh, perfect. And I'm not gonna say what he says because I like that line.
I was like, I figured you were gonna save that one.
Yeah.
It's a good line.
But then we're back at the house and Jane has visited. She's outside and she's just kind of looking up at the house. They're trying to wave down at her to get her attention, but of course they're dead and they don't understand the mechanics of being dead. So,
and it says in the book, it says that most people won't be able to see them.
Yeah. So she doesn't see them. And then it's like the next morning and it looks like they're both asleep in bed and then Adam rolls over and Barbara's just like floating there asleep. And then we get the part where the Deetzes move in.
Yep, because the place was sold.
Yep. Because they have been dead for 2 months now, we find out very soon. But so they're moving in and everything, and we meet Delia. She's the mother, well, stepmother to Lydia. We find out later that she's a stepmother. But she's a sculptor, an artist.
She is an artiste.
And then the dad, Charles, is just like trying to relax. He's like, we moved out here so we could relax.
And Lydia's just like dressed all in black, just like, how do I describe her?
Emotional, emo.
That's what I was going to go with, yeah.
But she's also kind of depressed, we find out a little bit later. And then we meet Otho, who comes in through the window.
I've always liked Otho.
He is like, I guess, their interior designer.
Yeah, and also friends with, Delia and everything.
Yeah. So Delia and Otho are like working on like planning the remodel and stuff. And they're walking around the house and stuff. Barb and Adam are trying to get rid of them already. So Barb has decided to try some tricks. So she's hanging in this closet with a noose around her neck. They open the closet, see her, and at first you think they see her, and she like pulls her face off and it's just like the skeleton. And that's a good practical effect right there. But then you realize, oh, they don't see her. They're just freaking out because the closet's really small. Because they just, like, push her to the side.
Yeah.
And then Delia and Otho go into another room. And Barb is standing there with a knife. And Adam's head in her hands. And Adam's body on the ground. But Charles comes over. And he's like, you can't have this room. This is my room. You're leaving it alone. And so they still don't see Barb and Adam.
Nope, still don't. And then they say, oh, well, what's upstairs? It's like, oh, just an attic. And Adam's like, oh, I forgot to lock it. So he literally, goes body, upstairs. Headless, of course. It like locks the door. I'm like, you don't have a head right now, dude.
Yeah. But they don't notice his body running past. They just kind of feel it. And then they're, like, trying to get into the attic, and they can't, so they give up. Barbara's super upset about these people being in her house, so she's like, I'm gonna go figure out what's wrong. I'm gonna figure out why we can't leave. So she leaves the house into the desert. And then we see this sandworm tries to attack her, but luckily they get out of it. They, like, escape. Just in the brink of time. Find the door. So then I guess it's like the next day or so, because they are bringing in furniture and stuff. And this includes some more of Delia's sculptures.
Yep.
And they have one of the sculptures like on the crane trying to get it into the house. And they're not very talented at getting it into the house because they end up... Charles is in the kitchen and they end up... ramming the sculpture through the kitchen window. but then they pull it back out and Delia gets trapped by it.
Foreshadowing.
Also, something that happens at this point with Barbara and Adam, they're like looking through the book trying to figure out how to get rid of these people, and this ad for Beetlejuice falls out of the book. And they see it and they're like reading it and stuff, and they only say his name 2 times. Because the third one is cut off on the bottom corner.
Yep. Lydia's outside, you know, she's watching everything. Does she have her camera at this point?
Yeah, she's outside taking pictures.
And she sees that, she looks up and she does see Adam and Barbara in the attic. Yep. And she's like puzzled. She's like, huh. And Jane's there, she shows up. And Lydia goes over to her and she's asking, well, how did the previous owners die?
Yeah.
And then Jane gives her the skeleton key to help open up, like, it opens any door in the house.
Yeah. And so Lydia's gonna go up there to the attic because she saw them, so she's, like, really curious about them being up there. And then on her way up, she's, like, almost there. The Beetlejuice commercial comes on where he's, like, basically trying to convince Adam and Barbara to hire him.
He's trying.
He's like making a fool of himself and stuff. It's funny. But the commercial ends. Lydia hears a little bit of it, and so she's like super confused. And then she tries to open the door, but they stop her from getting in. They like poke the key out of the keyhole, which is kind of funny. And then they're like reading a book because they're trying to figure out how to get some help to ask questions and stuff. They have found an area in the book that says how to get help, and so it says to draw a door, so they do, and it says knock 3 times, so they do, and the door opens. We see Charles bird watching, which I'm just like, what? This is so random.
He's just trying to relax.
Yeah.
That's the whole goal, is trying to relax.
But so Adam and Barbara are in this, like, waiting room thing, and the woman opens the little receptionist door, and she's saying, you're going to use up all your vouchers. You've been dead 2 months. And they're so confused still.
It's like, you only get 3 vouchers, and you're stuck on there for 125 years.
Yeah. In the waiting room, there's quite a few interesting characters in there.
As that person choked on chicken bones.
Yeah.
There's the person that had been smoking.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of interesting people in there.
Yeah. And they've all died in different ways. And Barbara goes, is this what happens when you die? And then the receptionist does her line, this is what happens when he dies. This is what happens when she dies. This is what happens when they die. And then she goes, if I had known then what I know now, I wouldn't have had my little accident.
Of course she holds up her wrists.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, Lord.
Yeah. But Lydia is able to get into the attic because Barbara and Adam are not there. And she finds the book, and so she reads it because she thinks it's interesting. Then the flat man, like he's been run over by something, so I just call him the flat man. Calls Adam and Barbara into the, like, that it's their turn or something, and he's just making jokes about being dead. He's like, how am I looking on the other side? He's like, there's no mirrors here. But so he tells them that they need to go to the 6th door. And so they're walking along, and one of the doors is open, and so they go over and look into it, and there's a bunch of, like, apparitions is the best word for them. But they're like, what is this? And the janitor guy comes over, and he's like, this is the lost souls room. This is where ghosts go after they've been exorcised. So it's basically the dead ghost room. And he closes the door.
Dead ghost room. That's just a funny thing to say.
Yeah. And that's also some foreshadowing as well. But so they go through the 6th door, and they, like, get in, and they're, like, looking around, And at first it doesn't look familiar, but then they turn and they see that it's actually their house. And then they're like, well, how long have we been gone? And they have been waiting for 3 months.
3 months. She's like, I was getting tired of waiting.
Yeah.
Then you meet Juno.
Yep. I like Juno. She's cool.
Was it? She has a slice against her throat.
Yeah. Because there's smoke's like coming out of it. But they're asking her how to get rid of the people because they don't want the people there. And then they ask about Beetlejuice, and she says, do not ever call him for help. Like, you don't want his help.
It's like, he used to be my assistant, but then he went out on his own.
Yeah.
He just causes trouble, so don't even deal with him. She's like, the only way you can get him summoned if he calls his name 3 times.
Yeah. And my brain is just like, well, if you don't want them to do it, then why are you telling them how to do it?
Shh, cat. You're trying to think logically here.
I know. So then we see the model, like the model of the town. And there's a fly, like, buzzing around it and stuff. And Beetlejuice, like, calls it over. He's, like, tempting it to come over. And he's, like, tricking it. And then he, like, has a candy bar and tricks it, and then he eats it.
He eats the fly.
And it's super funny because it, like, reminded me of the movie The Fly a little bit.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
But then Charles is calling, I guess it's, like, maybe his boss or his business partner or something, and then asking him to come up here because he's like, these people don't know what they have right in front of them. Like, we can get away with basically robbing these people blind.
Yeah. He's a businessman.
Yeah. And he, like, is hearing noises while he's on the phone. But he just kind of ignores them, and then he hangs up. And he opens the door, and there's someone under a sheet moaning at the door. And he thinks it's Lydia, so he just tells her to go away. But it's not, so it reveals it's Barbara under the sheet. And so then Barbara and Adam try Delia next, but she is out like a light.
Yeah, she is passed out. And Lydia hears the sounds from the room, and she's like, oh, gross.
It's super funny because as a kid, this just like as a little kid, this just like flew over my head. And the older I got, the more I understood. And so it's so hilarious now because she just thinks her dad and stepmom are going at it.
And she's like, I'm a child.
Yeah.
That part always cracks me up. It does get funnier as you get older, I will say that.
Yeah. But this is where we find out, or this is where Lydia, she comes and takes pictures of them because she thinks it's her dad and Delia just acted really weird. So she's like taking pictures of them, and then she looks at the pictures and finds out she sees no feet under the sheets. And then she figures out, oh, it's the dead people. And so she tells them that Delia is her stepmom, and then she asks them to prove that they're ghosts. And I'm like, what? What do you mean prove that they're ghosts? So you already took pictures of them with their no feet in the pictures. Like, you can't even see them in the pictures. You just see the sheets hanging there. Like, what do you want them to prove?
It's like, she's like, I read your handbook.
Yeah, she does say that too. Because they don't understand why she can see them.
He's like, some people can.
Yeah. And then Lydia tells Delia later on, I guess like the next day or something.
And Delia's not having, she's like, you know what, I'm making dinner for a dinner party coming up, like that night. Yeah. She's like, I don't want to deal with your ghost stuff right now.
Yeah. And then Adam and Barbara call on Beetlejuice. And it like transports them into the model.
Yes.
And they don't understand, but then they see some signs and they start digging and stuff, and then they get to him. And then we actually fully get introduced to Beetlejuice, which is, I think, a really cool scene.
He just burst out through
his
coffin.
Yep. And he's like, they're asking him to help them, and he's like, well, what do you need? And they say, can you be scary? And he's got, like, worms coming out of his head and stuff. He's like, is this scary enough?
It's like, I don't know. They're like, I don't know.
And so they kind of talk about it and then decide they don't want his help right now, that they're going to figure it out on their own. So Beetlejuice gets mad. Then we get the dinner party.
Yes, the dinner party.
And they're discussing ghosts and stuff. And, like, everybody's talking about how they don't believe. And Otho's like, well, I believe. And then we get the Deo song.
Deo.
Which I think is one of the best portions of acting in this movie. Because you have to think, like, all these actors are doing this dance. Like, the actors are actually doing it, even though the characters are technically, like, the characters are possessed. Lydia just kind of stands back. She, like, realizes what's happening, and she stands back. But the actors, you can see it on their faces that they're just, like, they portray the, oh my god, what's happening on their face so well while they're having their bodies do the dance moves and stuff. And I'm like, that's just some really good acting right there, because my butt would be cracking up trying to do that.
So you'd be Lydia in the corner laughing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I just think it's just great, and I love how it's just like a random song. I'm like, really? Harry Belafonte? It's like, we're doing calypso music? Okay, that works.
Then at the very end, so they have lobster tails, I guess, or something, like shrimp tails or something.
Yeah, shrimp cocktail.
On their plate in front of them, and at the end, it's like sits them down, and the shrimp cocktail comes up, and it's like little hands, and well, not little, like they're like full-size hands, like of an adult. And I thought that was some really good practical effects, too.
Yeah, I always like that part.
But Barbara and Adam are up in the attic expecting everybody to just book it out the door, scared out of their minds. Because they're laughing and stuff, and they think that they've scared everybody. But Lydia comes up and says that everybody wants to see them because they had so much fun with what just happened. And so all the people that were at the dinner party are downstairs, like, discussing it and stuff, like, waiting for the ghosts to come down to talk to them. And Lydia's like, you can wear whatever sheets you want. I was like, what? Like, she just seems so excited, like, so depressed about it, because I feel like at that point she's on the same level as Barbara and Adam, where she just wants everybody gone, and she just wants to hang out with Barbara and Adam. But then they're all excited about it, so she comes up and, like, delivers the bad news. Like, you can wear whatever sheets you want. Like, so disappointed.
Yeah, and, like, the guests were all excited and all of that and everything. They're like, oh, yeah, we get real ghosts, you know?
Yeah. And then Lydia comes back down and says that the ghosts don't want to come down because they were trying to scare them, and now they're upset because they're not scared. And then so the guests get upset and they leave because they're like, oh, you tricked us, blah, 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 blah. And so Charles and Otho and Delia make Lydia take them up to the attic because they want to see the ghosts. And they're like yelling at the ghosts to let them into the attic. And so they let them in, but they're not in there. They're hanging out the window.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of looking around out in the looking around at in the attic and stuff. And we see Otho takes the handbook,
Which is important.
yes. And then they're like headed back down, and we get the Beetlejuice snake.
Yeah, he turns is the banister of the stairs like into this giant snake with his head on it. Of course,
Yeah.
he scares everybody with it. He knocks Otho down the stairs, and he grabs Charles by the foot and everything.
Yeah.
Drops him downstairs. I'm like, you just dropped him like a story.
Yeah. Like, that's 10 feet. That's a long way. That's gonna hurt.
And and then Beetlejuice goes after Lydia, and then Barb sends him back, by saying his name 3 times.
Yeah. He's super upset. So he's like, well, I'm gonna entertain myself then. And as a kid, this just kind of blew over my head as to what it was. Because to me, that kind of, you know those, like, at fairs and stuff, those haunted house little rides? When I was a kid, that's what that looked like. So I was, like, super excited. I wanted to go, too. But then as I get older, I'm like, oh, my God. Holy crap.
Oh, I can see that. I can see you thinking that. It does look like one of those, like, you know, like, fair rides, you know, and everything.
Like the little haunted one that you get in the little car and you ride through it that aren't really scary at all.
Yes.
But I thought that was funny.
Oh, Cap. I'm like, it's not that. It's a whorehouse.
Yeah, it is a whorehouse. But the caseworker kind of pulls them into her office.
And she's like, you really screwed up.
Yeah, and she's like, the whorehouse was my idea. Because Barbara thought that Adam built that there. And he's like, no, I didn't. And they're in trouble because they called Beetlejuice after she told them not to. After she told them how to. But this part's super funny because there's football players in her office. And they keep calling her coach. And, like, asking questions and stuff. So my guess is they're, like, a high school football team or something.
Yeah.
Because they're acting really immature. Like, really, really immature. Like, where's the bathroom coach? And all this, that, the other coach. And then she's like, your coach survived.
It's like, and then they figure out, they're like, I don't think we survived. It's like, no, we gave it away. Oh, she's great.
Caseworker, she's like, you just need to figure out how to get rid of them on your own. And so they decide to, like, contort their faces.
Oh, great. Great effects there. I love those faces. Oh, those are great costumes. Oh my God, I would love to do that sometime.
That's some great sculpting.
Oh, yes.
Like, V. Neal at her best right there, let me tell you. But so they, like, contort their faces all weird and funny and stuff. And then they go back to the house and they get there. And all of a sudden, she had been in the attic, like, looking for them. And she was, like, talking to Beetlejuice, trying to ask for help. Because she didn't know where Barbara and Adam were, so she was asking Beetlejuice where they were. But then they come in, Barbara and Adam do, and they kind of scare her because their faces are all contorted. And then they put them back and they're talking to her and stuff. Oh yeah, this is after Lydia wrote her suicide note. She's going to ask because she's talking to Beetlejuice about being on his side, like being dead, because she wants to be dead because she just wants to be with Barbara and Adam. And then...
Ooh, and he's questioning it. He's like, why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh. That's a nice part of Beetlejuice.
Yeah. But Barbara's like, I don't really want to scare them away because that means Lydia's going to leave too, and I like Lydia. Like, they really enjoy Lydia's company.
It's like the daughter they could never have.
Yeah. And then when she's talking to him about how she wants to be like them, they're trying to convince her that she doesn't want to be that way. And then it's time for Charles to have his, like, dinner party. Well, his, like, presentation thing about, like, the paranormal way that this area could be. Lydia has to tell him that Barbara and Adam aren't going to come to his little thing. And Otho's like, yeah, right, I'm gonna make them.
Yeah, he's like, I just need something of theirs.
Yeah.
And Delia's like, I got something.
Yep. So, it's like a seance, kind of.
Yeah.
That he's performing, but it also kind of reminded me a little bit of that Lost Souls room, because as they were deteriorating away, they kind of looked like the Lost Souls, so I think it was also an exorcism, not just a seance.
Yeah.
Because he's, like, slowly killing them, and he doesn't know how to stop.
Yeah, because he uses their wedding clothes.
Yeah. So they're, like, in their wedding clothes and stuff. So Lydia goes and asks Beetlejuice for help. And he says that he's only going to help her if she marries him, because that's the only way that he can get out of his trapped world that he's in, is if he gets married.
He's like, I gotta get hitched.
We get the cool carnival, like, type costume and scene thing, which I really liked a lot. But he's terrorizing everyone.
Oh, yeah. It's like, he sends the Max and his wife, he, like, does the, what is it?
It's like the hammer game.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say. Sends him flying through the roof, and I'm like, oh boy.
Yep. And then, he's, like, talking to Delia and Charles about marrying Lydia, and they're so confused. But then he starts the wedding, and Lydia's in, like, this red wedding dress.
And he's like, we need witnesses. He's like, would you? And so he traps Charles and Delia in Delia's sculptures.
Yep. So Lydia, they're, like, going through the wedding, and she's, like, trying to say no, but he covers her mouth and then imitates her voice and, like, talks like her and says yes. And at this point, since Beetlejuice stopped the exorcism thing, Adam and Barbara can now speak again. They're not, like, little... Because at first they were having trouble talking. Like, Adam's jaw falls off and stuff as their little old wrinkly selves, which is kind of funny. So now that the wedding is going on and they've stopped being their, like, wrinkly, almost dead ghost selves, which is kind of funny to say, dead ghosts.
It is. And so Adam tries to start saying it, they try to start saying Beetlejuice's name. And so he sends Adam into the model. Yep. And so Barbara tries to say it. She says his name one time. And so he zips her mouth shut. Yeah. And then she tries to say, zips it, says it again. And then he, like, puts, like, this metal, like, plate over her mouth. Yeah. And sends her away to that sandy place.
Yep. And, so she's, like, trapped in there and stuff, and the wedding's almost over, and all of a sudden the sandworm comes through the roof of the house and eats Beetlejuice, and we see Barbara.
She's riding
back. Yeah, she's on it. And then it's kind of over. Like, the whole fiasco is over. And so I guess it's like a few months later or something. And they, Lydia is just getting done with school, and so she comes home, and she's talking to Barbara and Adam, and
it seems like they share the house with the Deetzes now. So it seems like Adam and Barbara get, like, the first floor, and then the Deetzes get, like, the second floor or something like that.
And they're talking to Lydia about school, and she brought home some paint and pictures of the new town hall for Adam for his model. And so they're asking her about school, and she got a C in science because she didn't want to dissect a frog. And then she got an A on her math test. She's like, well, can I? And you don't really know exactly what she's talking about just yet. But then the song starts, and she's, like, dancing and stuff, like, up in the air and all that. Like, basically the Deo song, but just to a different song and just Lydia.
Yeah, it's the Jump in the Line.
Yep, that's it. I couldn't remember the name of the song.
It's also another Harry Belafonte song.
Yeah.
More Calypso music. Woo!
But so Charles is reading. It's funny because he's reading the handbook for the recently deceased, and he says the same thing that Adam had said. It reads like stereo instructions, and he's like, "Oh, sounds like Delia got an A on her math test." Or not Delia, Lydia. Sorry.
Yeah, and of course, like, he turns around, and Delia has, like, this sculpture of, like, Beetlejuice's face, like, right in his face, and so he freaks out a little bit. She's like, "Oh, he likes it," and then just, like, walks away. I'm like, nice. Nice.
And then we see Beetlejuice is in the lobby of the waiting room for the dead people. And this is where we see the cut in half lady.
Yeah.
and the shrunken head dude, and then the voodoo dude that shrunk the shrunken head's dude head. And he sees the number switch to number 3, I guess. And then he, like, looks down at his number, and it's, like, a mile long. And he looks over at the voodoo guy, and he sees that his number is number 4. So he, like, tricks him and takes his number and switches the number out. Which I'm like, how are you not gonna notice that?
It was pretty obvious.
Yeah. So the voodoo guy shrinks Beetlejuice's head.
Yep.
And then we see Lydia again, and then we see the dancing football ghosts.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's the movie for you.
Yeah. So the music for this, Danny Elfman, of course, did it. Him and Tim Burton worked together a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Like, a ton. I refer to them a lot of time as the dynamic duo, because they're great together.
It's like, when they do movies together, it's just great. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So, Danny Elfman is known for The Nightmare Before Christmas from 1993, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory from 2005, Corpse Bride from 2005, Men in Black from 1997. And a lot of those he did work on with Tim Burton. So, the very first thing he ever did was The Forbidden Zone, which was a movie that came out in 1980. And he is currently working on Dolittle it's going to come out next year, January 2020, which is Robert Downey Jr.'s new movie. Basically Dr. Dolittle. Then he is also working on Do You Believe in Ghosts? And I think it's just announced. It's no longer a rumor. It has been announced officially, but Beetlejuice 2. So, we will see.
As long as Michael Keaton's back doing it, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, I agree, but I also think they don't really need another one.
I agree, too.
So, we'll see how that goes.
I'd also like to add a Danny Elfman that people don't mostly know this, but he did the theme song for The Simpsons.
Yep.
And he did the theme song for the TV show Tales from the Crypt.
Yep.
I told my students that, and they blew their little minds. Because they recognize the music. They're like, isn't that the same guy that does Nightmare Before Christmas? I'm like, thank you.
Yeah, I've known that since I was little, but
some people don't.
I like Tales from the Crypt.
Oh, so do I. Crypt Keeper's a good guy, too. Good guy.
But I like the music a lot in this.
Me too.
But I like Danny Elfman a lot, so.
Me too.
Do you have any trivia?
Besides that, Michael Keaton pretty much came up with the character. Like, the only thing that Tim Burton told him about the character was having lived in every time period, but no time period at all. And so he used that as like a jumping off point to help create the character. So like with the crazy hair, the crazy makeup, the teeth, like how he like ad-libbed pretty much most of his lines.
Yeah.
He did. He ad-libbed like 90% of his lines. So that's why you see like just chunks of him just going off in just like rapid succession of lines. And then like one line he has to say so the person afterwards can say it. Their line.
Yeah.
And the fun fact, it's his title of the movie is Beetlejuice. He's only in there not even 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like 17 minutes long. Yeah.
I do have something because one of the other podcasts that I listened to, The Evolution of Horror, actually did a show on this one that I've listened to, and they were talking about how the character of Beetlejuice was supposed to be a lot darker. Like, instead of marrying Lydia, he wanted to rape Lydia. I was like, oh, I'm glad that they changed that, because that would have been super dark. But it's just like, when they got, because I think that was like the, like kind of a little bit of a basis that they had of major things that were going to happen, but then they got Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice, and so they changed what they were going to have it do, I think is what they had said. I don't remember exactly, but that episode was Ghostbusters and Beetlejuice, so if you're interested in what they have to say on that, that is The Evolution of Horror. And I've listened to quite a few of those, and they're actually really cool. So it's a lot of fun listening to them because you get some interesting facts from them. And it's all horror movies.
Nice.
So it's amazing.
And then I got one more thing. This is just like some random thing. So the Beetlejuice, where you get the name Beetlejuice from, is actually a star. And it's
like,
it's an actual star.
Yeah.
In the constellation Orion.
Yep.
Fun fact there. So yeah.
I remember seeing that, like learning that a long time ago. I don't remember when exactly, but I do remember learning it.
I mean, people take, names from like constellations and stars all the time. I mean, J.K. Rowling did that all the time with her characters.
Yeah.
But I've talked about that before.
So, favorite line?
I don't know. Where do I start?
One of my favorites is that one that I wouldn't say earlier when Beetlejuice was looking for a job. Cute couple. Look nice and stupid, too. I liked that one. Look at that kitchen. You're finally going to be able to cook a decent meal.
Ouch.
Yeah, I was like, oh. And then Otho and Delia are walking around the house and stuff. And they walk near a bathroom. And then Delia goes, oh, look, an indoor outhouse. My whole life is a dark room. That's Lydia. Maybe you can relax in a haunted house, but I can't. And I was like, it depends on what kind of haunted house you're talking about. If you're talking about your kind of haunted house, then no, probably not. But if you're talking about like the Halloween type of haunted house, like going to haunted houses and stuff, I'm so relaxed in those. I have so much fun. Be happy you didn't die in Italy. You know what they say about people who commit suicide? They become civil servants in the afterlife.
Yep.
I thought that was funny because the lady that committed suicide. I think that's all I got.
I got a few. What's the point of being a ghost if you can't frighten them away? The usual, one of the famous lines. I myself am strange and unusual.
Yeah.
Go ahead and make my millennium. Another great one.
Yeah.
Never trust the living. That's just a good fact for everybody to know.
Yeah.
This death thing is just too creepy. What are you going to do? Viciously rearrange their environment? Yeah. And this is my favorite one, mostly because it's just really funny. It's after Beetlejuice pulls out this like finger and it's got a ring on it. He's like, "I'm telling you, honey, she meant nothing to me, nothing at all." That's my favorite line of the entire movie. So it's your movie. You pick. Tough, huh? There's a lot of good lines in here.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna go with the maybe you can relax in a haunted house, but I can't.
That works.
So what is your rating?
I couldn't decide between an 8 or a 9. I really couldn't. So I'm gonna go towards the higher one. I'm gonna go with a 9. Yeah. I absolutely love this movie. I can watch it all the time. I mean, like I said earlier, Tim Burton and Michael Keaton. And there's some great practical effects in here.
Yeah.
And they aged pretty well. I mean...
Yeah, the practical effects looked really good, and they still look really good.
And I've been wanting to do that costume for years. I've been trying to get Logan to do that costume with me. I've been trying. So far, nothing, but we'll see.
I'm gonna give it a 9 as well. Literally, the only reason I can't give it a 10 is because the CGI doesn't hold up. That's, like, the only thing.
That's it.
Yeah, because, like, everything else, I just loved it. Like, I love the music. The story is great. You don't really ever get to see... Because, like, if you get haunting movies, you don't get to see it from the sides of the ghosts. You just see it from the sides of the people. So I think the story is really inventive. The makeup's really well done. I love the practical effects. But, yeah, it's just the CGI doesn't hold up.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that.
As we get further. But, yeah. So our next film is A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yay! I've been waiting to do this one. Like, I'm so excited. I have so much to say about it. So, Kat, you might have to restrain me a little bit on that one.
Okay.
We'll see.
All right. So we will catch you in just a few minutes with Nightmare on Elm Street. Bye.
Bye.